Hi.
Long time no see.
Michael Knowles. You know, at least I don't say nasty things behind your back. I say them right while you're sitting here.
Explicitly to my face, 6 inches away. I appreciate that.
So you are traveling a lot, and I noticed you're now being threatened.
Finally, I've been saying
by somebody other than me.
It's between you and Ben, it's like having 10 Antifa groups around every day. But I've been going around the country spreading hate facts now for at least a year.
I hate those hate facts.
Those hate facts.
They're so much worse than
facts.
hate lies.
Yeah.
Assault facts. Yeah.
So I'm giving a speech on Thursday. I'm very excited for this. At Notre Dame, there's been a big controversy over Christopher Columbus. They're covering up pictures of Christopher Columbus. They want to tear down Christopher Columbus.
They should tear down Notre Dame since it's on land that Christopher Columbus helped find.
Christopher Columbus is one of the greatest men in all of history.
He was a great man.
He is a truly great man. He is blamed for things that he never did. Yeah. He is blamed for things that other people did. He is vilified for doing good things. He is one of the great all-time men of history. We should all be profoundly grateful to him. I will be giving that speech at Notre Dame on Thursday. I may not make it back. I may be beheaded on the spot.
I can't believe this. What they actually are calling for people to attack you.
Yes, they are. Antifa is now calling for people to come out and attack me at Notre Dame. And I am more than willing. People always say, this is how you know that you're having a Twitter argument in bad faith. They say, well, is this the hill you're willing to die on? So I'm not going to die on a hill. I just want to give my opinion. This is a hill I'm willing to die on. Christopher Columbus is the hill. I will defend that guy and all of the Western civilization he represents.
One of the great Jewish men of history.
One of the great Jewish men. That's one of my favorite theories about Christopher.
He may have been actually, no?
I think the evidence is sketchy.
Okay,
yeah, I'm willing to entertain all sorts of historical conspiracy theories. I'm not totally buying that one.
Forget it. But
but he was black and an alien.
His navigator was a Jewish.
Yes. And he actually, he did leave at the very year that the Jews were expelled
That's
from.
Right.
So a lot of people think he was getting out of Dodge.
Exactly. That's why. It's like he didn't go to discover America, just getting the hell out.
We don't need to go to the Indies, but we can't stay here.
All right, let us talk. Oh, you know what? We got to go one quick ad for Another Kingdom.
Let's do it.
AnotherKingdomBook.com. If you pre-order, you get all kinds of goodies, including a prequel that I wrote that's almost the size of a small novel. And you can do it by getting also your audiobook, which is you. Right?
The audiobook was so fun to record. Yeah. I told you, I hate to compliment you like this. I actually teared up. I had to take a moment when I was recording some of the last chapters of Another Kingdom, the audiobook. It's just fabulous. It's a great novel.
Thank you. I'm really
I don't even like novels. It takes a lot for me to like a novel.
This is the only novel you've read since I've met you, I think. All right, let's talk about President's Day, because it is President's Day.
It is. Well, it's Washington's birthday.
It's Washington's birthday. Isn't that? It really is, right?
It actually isn't President's Day. There is no federal holiday called President's Day. It remains Washington's birthday.
I did not know that.
Yet everyone says President's Day now because we live in a degraded culture.
It's a degraded culture. I mean, because I don't want to celebrate like Millard Fillmore.
Do I want to celebrate Franklin Pierce? Oh, happy Franklin Pierce Day. There was an act of Congress in 1789. It established a holiday for George Washington's birthday. This is a good thing. George Washington is the greatest president of all time.
Yeah.
He is consistently ranked the greatest president of all time, deservedly so. Part of the confusion of whose birthday it is because of Protestantism, because when
you would blame Protestants for anything.
For everything. The fall of Rome, Protestantism, those Protestant Visigoths. It was because the Church of England left Rome before the advent of the Gregorian calendar. So we measured Washington's birthday on the Julian calendar, and then later we switched over to the Gregorian calendar. And so there was always this question of, was Washington's birthday on February 22nd? Was it on this date because of the Julian calendar? So Washington is born February 22nd.
Okay.
Lincoln is born February 12th. Huh. So some people wanted to combine the two into one holiday, President's Day. Now, those two guys, I'm happy to celebrate.
Right.
Some of the others, not so much. There was an attempt in 1951 to establish the President's Day Committee. Virtually anything that ends in committee is going to be bad.
That's true,
it's going to turn out for the worse. So there was this movement to try to get the law changed. There was a vote in 1968 to change the law to an all-encompassing President's Day. It failed because people love Washington.
Right.
But in the 80s, corporate America, which is the culture, it is leftist culture, decided to start advertising President's Day broadly, and that's how we ended up with this confusion.
Really?
Yes.
No kidding. This is a corporate. This is
a total corporate
because
thing.
You don't even hear them say Washington's birthday anymore. I mean, you still see Washington and Lincoln as the representatives of President's Day. If it's not sheets, I mean, mostly it's about sheets, you know. It's about
That's only for the Democrat presidents, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. How did it become about betting? Where did that?
That's a really great question. You know, they started this trend. And so now it's always Washington and Lincoln. But look, they were white guys, probably straight. Lincoln, I don't know, some questions.
Yeah, there was some
And what it really is I'm sort of joking about the identity politics of it, but it is that we feel uncomfortable attributing giving veneration to individual men.
You know, it's really interesting about George Washington, especially that everybody has had revisionist history. It was true that they put forward, it was a nonsense theory, but they put forward that Lincoln was gay because in those days men would actually share a bed.
Yeah,
if
he had a roommate. Yeah, so they said he's gay.
Right.
What does that say about having multiple roommates?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, gosh.
But no, you know, that was nonsense. But they've done all this revisionist history, and there are interesting questions about Lincoln. There are interesting questions about the fact that he shifted the kind of center of gravity of American gravity from liberty to union. And that's a legitimate question. I mean, everything is overridden by the evil of slavery, so he gets away with it. But I think it's an interesting thing to discuss. With Washington, they cannot lay a finger on him. I mean, the guy was he was exactly what everybody at the time said he was. He was like the avatar of virtue, basically.
King George III is said to have said, with actually good provenance, that George Washington was the greatest man in the world.
Because he refused to be king.
That's right.
I mean, he had an army at his back. He walks in with an army at his back and hands his sword over to the civilian authorities.
Hands over his commission.
I mean, I can't think of, does that happen any other time in history? They talk about Cincinnatus going home, you know, after winning the fight, but nobody with that much power, and the people would have celebrated him. They would have celebrated him as king.
That's right, and he is peerless. He is simply peerless.
Yeah.
And so this is what's so offensive. Even ranking Lincoln there, Lincoln, one of the great presidents, but even none of them touch Washington.
That's right. Yeah.
And so today, to celebrate President's Day, we're celebrating Andrew Johnson. One-term president, Democrat VP for Lincoln. He supported an end to slavery. He opposed the 14th Amendment. He opposed bringing the South around during Reconstruction. He basically said, let them do whatever they want. He vetoed the first civil rights bill. Republicans have passed virtually all of the civil rights bills, with one exception, in 1964. And even that civil rights bill was passed with majority Republican support. He vetoed that. He only survived impeachment because he didn't have a vice president to replace him, and everyone was afraid of Benjamin Wade, who was the Senate.
Killing Lincoln was one of the most effective assassinations in history. It really did. It changed everything. The Reconstruction would not have been the disaster it was, and I don't think that the Jim Crow things would have necessarily taken hold if Lincoln had remained
Because
alive.
Jim Crow really only began in earnest a couple decades after the Civil War. It was really a bizarre reaction. People like to pretend that the antebellum South was, full of lynchings and Jim Crow, had a lot of slavery. But Jim Crow was a reaction to the Civil War, to radical Reconstruction.
And radical Reconstruction, which I don't think Lincoln would have supported. I mean, obviously, you had to reconstruct, but you do. Look, it was when you have an evil like that, like slavery, it has consequences.
Well, this is what's interesting. When you look at all of the worst presidents, you try to, you read a biography of every president, you try to. Basically, the question of slavery is what separates the wheat from the chaff. So you have James Buchanan, another widely considered one of the worst presidents in history, fairly so, one-term president just before the Civil War. Also a Democrat, just coincidental, kind of also like Johnson. He was pro-slavery. He defeated the first ever GOP candidate, John Fremont. He allegedly, and historians buy this, influenced the Supreme Court decision in Dred Scott, which said that blacks can never become American citizens. Dred Scott was decided before Buchanan was inaugurated, but after he won the election, and it's believed that he leaned on the court, he thought that would end the slavery question forever.
Good thinking.
Good thinking, buddy. Well done, James. He basically let the Civil War break out. He was a bachelor. It's kind of weird, you know, bachelor president.
Not saying anything.
No,
you know,
listen,
not that
there's anything wrong with that. Franklin Pierce, another one. Franklin Pierce did one good thing. He was the first president to put up a Christmas tree in the White House.
Good for him.
Good for him. Yeah. Also one term, also vehemently pro-slavery. Even after he left office, vehement critic of Lincoln. He took the oath of office not on a Bible. He took it on a law book. This is the kind of guy he was. He gave his entire 3,300. He was a creep. He was a real creep. He gave his 3,300 word inaugural address from memory, and then immediately canceled his inaugural ball. You get this sense of him as just a sort of like sociopath robot. You know. He was also a drunk who died from alcoholism, but occasionally had bursts of championing temperance. He was one of those guys. You know, hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue. And then you get to Fillmore, Millard Fillmore, as we mentioned him earlier. Another one-term president, last Whig president. He told Zachary Taylor, who was president before him, Fillmore's the vice president. Fillmore is a war hero. He's a Whig. He's anti-slavery. He's a great guy. He told Taylor that he would back the Compromise of 1850, the fugitive slave laws, all of these laws that entrench slavery, basically bring us the Civil War. And Zachary Taylor is there, dying, saying, no, don't do this, no. Taylor dies. Fillmore doubles down, supports this compromise after Taylor died in office. Maybe it put off the Civil War a few years, but it made it inevitable.
You know, this is actually, you're making a really good point that, like, that in some ways this kind of supports some leftist narrative that racism has divided. I mean, probably Woodrow Wilson is one of my least favorite presidents, and one of the first presidents that first Democrats that blacks voted for. Yeah, just a screaming racist. That's a horrible.
Oh yeah, he's certainly one of the worst presidents.
He was the Obama of his age. I mean, the left loved him, the intellectuals loved him, and all this. So we have to finish, but like, is this still officially Washington's birthday?
Yes, we are officially celebrating Washington's birthday. And you know, I have to, before we leave, I do have to make a point. People always say Warren Harding is one of the worst presidents. They go, because all the actual worst presidents are Democrats, so they try to throw in Warren Harding. Yeah. Warren Harding was a very good president.
Was he?
Returned to normalcy. He was extraordinarily popular when he was alive. He won the presidency by the greatest popular vote margin up to that point in history. Huh. He gave us Calvin Coolidge upon his death. What a wonderful thing to do. Yeah. Only guy to shrink the government. He was great on civil rights. He was great on anti-lynching. They try to harangue him for this one stupid scandal after he died, this non-controversy called Teapot Dome. Oh yeah, where he gave a sweetheart contract or whatever. Who cares? No, it's BS. Huh. All of the worst presidents from Wilson, before Wilson, after Wilson, they were all Democrats, and coincidentally, a lot of it does focus on their treatment of race, slavery, and racism being an affront to human dignity.
It is an affront. Yeah. What are you talking about on your show?
Well, now I'm going to have to talk about this. I'm all fired up. No, I'm going to be talking about fake hate hoaxes and real state hoaxes.
Excellent.
Real state crimes, rather.
Yes. That's an excellent subject. Knowles on after me, and also tomorrow on The Conversation, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Thanks a lot.